Over the weekend, we began to see stories explaining away why Moloch worshippers like Andrew Cuomo won't be excommunicated from the Roman Catholic Church. They list a variety of reasons why Cuomo, Pelosi, Biden, and others continue to call themselves Catholics, while endorsing and fighting for grotesque anti-Catholic practices, yet still remain either Catholics in good standing, or in the case of Andrew Cuomo, suffering only under self-imposed sanctions for their private sins that are unrelated on the surface to the issue of life. I'm going to add to that list of reasons you won't see excommunications coming anytime soon for Cuomo or any of the other people that I will list here. I'll give you a hint, though. It has nothing to do with the canonical reasons that people are saying. But first, let's look at the arguments typically made by those who say excommunication isn't likely. I'm going to focus here on the always courageous Cardinal Dolan, who told CNN the following. I'm pulling these quotes actually from a CatholicCulture.org piece, which is in the sources blog linked below. Like that article, I'll be responding to each of the Cardinal's points, but I intend to make different points than Philip Lawler did in his piece. Quoting Dolan directly. First, excommunication should not be used as a weapon. Too often, I fear, those who call for someone's excommunication do so out of anger or frustration. Well, we are angry. Righteous anger is a very real thing, Your Eminence. I'm sure you and everyone else recalls Jesus' reaction to the money changers turning the temple into a shopping mall. He didn't respond with kindness and permissiveness towards their gross sin. He flipped tables and whipped the sinners until they left the temple. Period. It is in no way sinful to be angry at legitimately evil things, and frankly, that is what you're implying here. But you're right, excommunication isn't a weapon. Rather, excommunication is a medicine meant to wake the sinner up to their objectively evil actions in order for them to take proper actions to adhere to the authority of the Church. The whole reason for Cuomo, and let's be real here, Pelosi, Biden, and many others, who reject and distort Catholic morality on this issue is to get them to repent of their sins before they stand before Jesus Christ and have to give a full accounting for their sins. Yes, there could be some political benefits to excommunicating these people, though I really doubt it in this political climate, given that several states are following suit in creating the most demonic anti-life laws in the world outside of communist China. But the political implications shouldn't matter in this, which is a point that will become relevant at the end of this video. Quoting the Cardinal again. Second, notable canon lawyers have said that under canon law, excommunication is not an appropriate response to a politician who supports or votes for legislation advancing abortion. Your Eminence, this is not advancing abortion. This is something very, very different than merely advancing abortion. There was a celebration of the legalization of killing children who could easily survive outside the womb. To call this merely advancing abortion is to miss the point entirely. Cuomo and others have a long, clear pattern of behavior of rejecting basic Catholic moral teaching at every step. This is beyond public sinning. This is a categorical rejection of the faith itself. Again, quoting the Cardinal directly on his third point. Third, from a pastoral perspective, if a pastor, and a bishop is certainly a pastor of a diocese, knows of a grave situation involving a parishioner, it is his duty to address that issue personally and directly with the parishioner. That was the approach of Cardinal O'Connor and Cardinal Egan, both of whom I served, and it is Cardinal Dolan's approach as well. And how well has that worked? His father, Mario, was cut from the same cloth. The Kennedys were cut from the same cloth. Pelosi, Biden, and the rest are all cut from the same cloth. Remember how Holy Scripture tells us that we cannot serve two masters, that we'll have to choose between serving God and serving Mammon. For decades now, this hasn't been merely a partisan political issue, because there are Republicans who are also Moloch worshippers. Any professed Christian politician who supports abortion has chosen Mammon. This isn't that hard. For example, Speaker Pelosi's first offer of a temporary reopening of the government during the recent shutdown included a mandatory repeal of the Mexico City policy. That's flagrant. The private corrections haven't worked if they've actually happened at all, a point that I'll address at the end. Again, quoting Cardinal directly for the final time. Fourth and finally, from a strategic perspective, I do not believe that excommunication would be effective, as many politicians would welcome it as a sign of their refusal to be bullied by the Church, thinking it would therefore give them a political advantage. Okay, so you're saying that because sinners gonna sin, we should give up telling them to stop sinning. Telling people to stop sinning is literally part of the gospel message of Jesus Christ. Go forth and sin no more is one of the things our blessed Lord said to more public sinners than almost anything else. And I'm pretty sure when he told the priests in the temple that they were a brood of vipers, he wasn't considering the political points they'd be gaining by his rebuking them. If anything, the reaction furthered his work of salvation, and thereby helped establish not only the church itself, but the clear demarcation of the church's mission being above and beyond petty concerns how, like unrepentant, sinning politicians, might gain materially in the process. But the real reason has nothing to do with strategy, or compassion, or anything of the kind. The real reason is politics. The real reason is money. To give you an idea, let's zero in on a supposedly Catholic nonprofit organization most American Catholics are familiar with, Catholic Relief Services. In 2016, Catholic Relief Services had an operating revenue of over $900 million. A staggering 78% of that, $714 million, came from public support, for which the U.S. federal government provided more than $314 million. Additional public sources included foreign governments and international organizations such as the United Nations, the Global Fund, and the World Bank, all noteworthy Catholic organizations, one and all, I'm sure you'll agree. And that's just Catholic Relief Services. That doesn't include other Catholic nonprofit organizations that the bishops are directly tied to, and this money often goes, at least in part, to diocesan coffers. Catholic Relief Services, among other organizations, go to cover secular leftist social justice causes, wrapped in the trappings of Catholic teaching. There are plenty of accounts of Catholic money going to support Planned Parenthood and other Moloch-worshipping organizations. Cuomo, Pelosi, Biden, and all of the other self-described Catholic politicians will not face excommunications because to do so will directly harm the pocketbooks of the bishops themselves and their dioceses. Why they think they can keep this relationship intact while RICO investigations loom is beyond stupid, given that one consequence of such an investigation is the loss of federal funds. The relationship between the U.S. government and all of its liberal Masonic trappings and the Catholic Church is extremely unhealthy. The two should not be allies in much of anything. And no, I'm not saying that the Church shouldn't be conducting charitable operations for helping the poor at home and abroad. Far from it. But this relationship is unhealthy to the point where the truths of the gospel have been sacrificed for political and, let's be honest, financial expediency. And that's a tragedy. A concept from the academic literature is illustrative here. That concept is called mission creep. I'll highlight some excerpts from a respected piece of the public administration literature on this. I won't read the full article because, one, I don't want to punish my audience by reading to you an academic journal, but also because I'm not really sure how fair use of laws apply to peer-reviewed journal articles. Okay, so this is from an academic article from an Australian university journal, the University of Wollongong, and I know I probably butchered its name. The article is Mission or Money: Competitive Challenges Facing Public Sector Nonprofit Organizations in an Institutional Environment. Its authors are Dolnikar, Irving, and Lazarevsky. It was published in 2008. Let's have a look at a few excerpts from the article to help me make the point that I'm trying to make here about money. By operating across two sectors, public sector nonprofit organizations are subject to two sets of institutional influences. Changes in the public sector have resulted in a competitive corporate approach, with implications for nonprofit organizations dependent on public sector funding. The dramatic increase in the number of nonprofit organizations over the last 20 years has led to a change in nonprofit culture from one of cooperation to one as intensely competitive as commercial organizations. Furthermore, nonprofits have changed from small and homely to large and more sophisticated, adopting management and government practices from the private sector. This is due to changing patterns of government funding for nonprofit organizations which promote competition. In other words, the increased number of nonprofit organizations has led to a huge number of nonprofits competing for the same government dollars. There's simply a glut of non-governmental organizations of various kinds wanting to do the work of nonprofits. The Catholic Church and her nonprofit organizations are some of the biggest dogs in the marketplace. Challenges to mission can arise with market orientation, sponsorship acceptance, employment of professionals, social entrepreneurship, or grant chasing, where mission creep sees organizations moving away from their original mission. Nonprofits may face an image crisis if they adopt corporate behavior, such as marketing, so must be clear about their mission when adopting corporate behavior. Organizational culture, internal organizational dynamics, functional complexity, technical uncertainty, and organizational size are some factors determining organizational response to institutional pressures, alongside clarity and commitment to organizational mission. Here we see the concept of mission creep for the first time. Think of it this way. The federal government makes money available to the public to achieve certain goals. They always come with strings attached. The government has certain expectations, including very reasonable expectations that only certain amounts of money go to cover administrative costs and expenditures related to the program, which the rest has to go to basic service delivery. But the services in question are also a string. And the whole point of the authors are making here is rather simple. If the organization in question is not rock solid on its identity and uses that to keep itself moored to reality, the financial and market pressures of receiving grant money could cause an organization to lose sight of its mission. Remember that when you think about the actual mission of the Roman Catholic Church. And finally, if no mission filter is applied, institutional pressures will be embedded in organizational culture, structures, and routines and may lead to mission creep. In other words, if the whole purpose of the organization isn't protected and relied upon when providing services, these forces will change the culture of the organization itself and not for the better. We can see this in the Catholic Church with our playing nice with secular authorities. The issue is this: the Church has lost much of what her mission is. This is the heart of the crisis in the Church in the conciliar era. This is one of the consequences of modernism. The Council explicitly called for a closer relationship with the world. Much of the Church's hard teachings have fallen by the wayside of political expediency. This is nakedly evident here in the case of Cuomo and his Moloch-worshipping cohorts, who clearly deserve excommunication. But the Church suffers from a great many things, ranging from heresy and heretical bishops to the charitable arms of the Church, forgetting that they are Catholic organizations, and have surrendered to the world on a lot of fronts, including in terms of who they are, what causes they champion, and who they will ally themselves with. Let's remember that when we see Cardinal Dolan and others defending Cuomo and refusing to take proper ecclesial actions against him and his kind, that the Church is being pulled in two directions on the life issue: the requirements of the faith and the requirements of the state. You cannot serve both God and Mammon. The Church in America needs to choose which she will serve. I know who I will serve, and I suspect you do too. If you like videos like this, like and share this video and subscribe and click the notification bell below. If you're interested in supporting my work, there are various options in the description below, including Subscribe Star, along with my social media, the Sources blog, and the Return to Tradition Facebook page. Thanks for listening. I'm Anthony Stein. Ave Maria.